Welcome to A Cloud of Witnesses. My name is Robert Pears. In Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, it says, "Therefore, seeing as we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, we are to lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily entangles us, and to run the race set before us with endurance, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith." I love the heroes of faith, God's generals, because there's so much we can learn from them that can help us in our walk. And I'm about to share with you an interview that I did with Roberts Liardon. But I want to start by talking about Kathryn Kuhlman, a woman who truly blessed me. There's certain things I truly love about this lady. In the book of Zechariah, it says that we're not to despise the days of the small beginning. I want to show you that I went to Boise in Idaho, where she started. And she preached throughout much of Idaho, following in many ways the Oregon Trail the reverse way, in small places. Her beginning wasn't great, her end was. But she was sold out to the gospel. She wasn't looking at numbers, she was looking at Jesus. Even when she went to Denver, she got this warehouse, which is now a hotel. It was every day it was a step further up, but she never lost sight of the love she had for Jesus. And what I think you can really see that manifested is what she would preach all day. And then she would go into her office and people would come and visit with her. And when they would come and visit, it didn't matter who they were. It didn't matter how exhausted she was. When they came in the room, she got full of energy, full of excitement, and they were royalty. She was excited and made them feel royalty. She wanted them to know that Jesus loved them, and that love began to ooze from her. People felt incredible when they came into her office, no matter who they were, and they were touched and changed. That love, I believe, that came because she lingered a little longer in the presence of God, despite all the terrible things she went through, was what made and marked her ministry. People would come in great numbers, and even before she began, people were healed and touched and transformed. They felt something in her service, that tangible, lingering presence of the Lord God, because God honored her because of the time she spent in the secret place. Well, I'm going to turn over right now to an interview I did with Roberts Liardon, and I pray it will bless you and encourage you as we look at some of the heroes of faith, those that stepped up to the plate in their generation to bring us the gospel, and may it provoke you to step up to the plate in this generation and be a voice for Him. Well, we're here in Boise, Idaho, and it is here that Kathryn Kuhlman joined her sister and brother-in-law who came from Washington, and they began preaching here. And she started off by preaching in a pool home here in Boise, Idaho. It's a beautiful state, very mountainous and very rural. But you have to go back 100 years ago to the turn of the 20th century, to the time period where she was ministering. And she actually said she ministered in every city in this state. She would travel the Oregon Trail the reverse way, going up the Snake River in the opposite direction. But this is not the place that you would imagine that God would start a ministry that would truly turn the world upside down. It is, as I said, a very rural state. There weren't the internet or communication systems that we have today. Yet God used the woman so powerfully, and I think built inside of her that pioneer character that carried her through her latter years. She would preach in many places, including at an old opera home in Pocatello, which we see here right now. But again, it was just a very rural place and a small beginning. So I guess my next question. Sure, they were born, the stars were aligned in some special format. They were unique individuals that God predestined to greatness, so that we ordinary people can never accomplish that.
And your statement or your question is so untrue. Ezekiel said to one of the people, or to a group of people in his day, "I've set where you set." And for some reason, that little Ezekiel verse, "I've set where you set," is how I answer that question. Every one of these great people that we admire so tremendously has sat in the same seat of question, the same seat of what is going on, why is this happening to me, or where's the miracles at, or what's going on. These type of things, we've all sat in the same chair. The thing is, they got up and went after God, and they didn't allow circumstance to conclude their answer for them. They went to heaven, they went to their knees, and they stayed there until they got an answer. Everybody great has done something stupid. One thing that I've done in my writings of God's generals is I've told you everything, the good, the bad, the natural, from a perspective of not being hostile or judgmental. Everybody I write about, I'd be on the front row of their meetings today going amen and putting offerings in their buckets. Okay, so when I tell you something in my writings or in my conversation today, it's not because I'm mad at anybody. I love them all. I defend them. I've helped some of their ministries come back alive to a new generation. That's how much I love them. But they've all done things that when you read their life story, they don't do that. They did it. And so you got to realize everybody great has done things that make you scratch your head or it makes you go, oh my God. But God's a God of a second chance and a third chance and a fourth chance. He said there's many chances you need. Now humans don't give you that many chances, but God does. And so my advice is don't use all those chances up. You know, a few of them are fine, but don't use them all up. They're all just like you and I, who walked with God and took advantage of what Christ gave them. I guess let me tell you this way, it'd be a little bit better to illustrate it. When I was a little boy, I went and saw Kathryn Kuhlman. I saw her 3 times in person and met her once in the green room of the Mabee Center when she was there, because we were friends with the Roberts family, and we were in the green room, and I remember her walking in. I was a little boy, so I wasn't a theologian. I didn't detect angels singing. I just remember laying the white dress, walked through the door, and she came over and talked to us and put her hand on my shoulder. And I remember looking at her hand like that, and she was sick. She was about probably a year from her death. And she was so frail, and this is what I remember as a little boy, I could see all the veins on the top of her hand. That's what I remember in the room. She talked to me about my calling and talked to my family about she felt that God had called me. I vaguely remember that, but I remember her hand and her coming through the room when I met her as a little child. But Miss Kuhlman, she was the most ordinary person. She'd tell everybody, I'm the most ordinary person in the world. And sometimes people think, well, she just said that because you had to say that. No, she really believed that. And when you study her private life, she was so much of an ordinary, what I would call high fashion lady. She loved fashion. She was a perfect woman in the fashion. She'd have been a great model, a great person in fashion if she'd have been taking that road as a career. And I remember seeing the miracles. The thing about Miss Kuhlman that I remember the most in those services, first would be what you felt for 3 to 4 hours. Now you saw miracles, but the thing I miss is what I felt, because your skin would just quiver just a little bit all over. You could feel the presence of God like that all over. And I remember feeling that. And we'd go back Sunday morning after her service. That was on the Sunday morning before. Many of the churches in Tulsa at that time dismissed their Sunday morning services. You know how hard to get a pastor to dismiss a Sunday morning service? They dismissed their Sunday morning service to go to the Kathryn Kuhlman meeting. Our church was one of them. And so the next Sunday morning, we were in Sunday school class, and our Sunday school teacher asked about 8 or 9 of us, what do you remember about the Kathryn Kuhlman meeting? And we all had our little answers. And I remember what I said. I can hear it just as clear as I'm talking to you right now. I like what I felt, and I want to feel it every day. That was my answer as an 8-year-old boy, because I remember feeling that glorious presence like that. And my Sunday school teacher, she meant well, but she was wrong. But I was taught to obey and believe my elders. So she goes, well, you can't have it every day. You should just be happy you had a chance to see a great woman and to feel that, because you'll never feel it again. That's what she said. And as a little boy, I thought, okay. And as I got in my life and began my ministry, there was a thing in me that I thought, I can never reach for that. I can never go where she was, because she was special. And then I realized, as I became a better student of the Word, that we all have the same access to the throne of God. Miss Kuhlman didn't have a special place next to God's throne, or Mother Eder, or Brother Wigglesworth, or Brother Lake, or any of the other people we admire. We're all given the same access to God's throne. The difference is how many took advantage of it, and how long did you stay inside the throne next to God. That's the difference. The thing that made Miss Kuhlman different than you and I was not that she was special in the sense that her salvation was different, or her measure of faith was different, or her access to God was different. It was that she stayed longer inside the throne room than you and I. And when she came out, that's what we saw. You and I have the same access, and there's no clock on how long you can stay versus how long she could stay. You can stay as long as you want. And to me, that's how I would explain or answer that question. It's what they did with what they were given that we don't do with the same thing we were given. And so if we can get people to do that without being religious. Now when I talk like this, then I've always in my mind, because I was a pastor for many years, I hear people saying, well, I got to go pay this price, and they do it with a religious spirit instead out of a humility and honest wanting to be with God. Some people try to do this so they can have power to be a great empire builder. They didn't go into God's throne to become a famous preacher. They went into God's throne to love Him, to learn about Him, and to do what He wanted. It was that simple. Some people approach God, I want to be a famous Reinhard Bonnke. I want the big crowds. I need the big TV ministry. None of these people in reality, when you get to know them and can read, they didn't think like that. Now, they got famous. They became that. But their heart and their motive was never like that. Or God doesn't give glory to people like that anyway. And so that would be my answer.